I'm delighted to have a chance recently to chat to Mike Townsend, who is founder and CEO of Earthshine, an international consultancy dedicated to advancing circularity and sustainability in business, the economy, and society. He's also an accomplished author and editor known for books such as The Quiet Revolution and Reframing the Game. As part of the Thought Leadership series in our Action Green magazine, Mike has contributed the first three articles where he tackles the question, is it time to rethink net zero? Hi, Mike, and thanks a million for joining us on this, the third and final part of your article series for our Is It Time to Rethink Net Zero series. And thank you so much for doing these for us. They're really, really interesting. And for anyone who wants to catch up on these articles, you'll find them up on our Action Green magazine section under the Thought Leadership series, and of course, the Techies Go Green website. So to put things in context, maybe a little bit, this is, again, as I said, is the third and final article in the series. How would you place this article in the overall scheme of things with the other two?
Okay, it's a pleasure to be here, Francis, first of all, for this final and third interview. So thank you for inviting me to join you today. In terms of where does this part three sit in the series, just a kind of quick recap. The overall point of the series is to allow us this opportunity to rethink net zero. At this time of culture wars and disinformation, there's a lot of barriers to getting net zero strategies off the ground, coupled with the fact that companies have been struggling to deliver the level of impact that they need to see, getting the quick wins, but then finding it harder going to find the next level of emissions reductions. And thirdly, also finding it difficult to make it work commercially. Always talk about costs rather than thinking about the overall business case and the commercial advantages that come with managing energy, carbon, resources and waste more effectively. So it's a great opportunity to rethink and develop a more strategic approach. We've got three parts, as you rightly highlight. Part one is all about context. Context is everything. At this time of culture wars, how do we cut through the noise of disinformation and find more effective pathways so we can deliver an impact and make it work commercially? Part two is a deep dive into a real heavy sector where there's a big footprint and construction, a major opportunity to do things differently, and where there's a real pathway that we can follow. Part three is all about how do we make it happen? How do we deliver a more transformational impact? Let's embrace complexity because it isn't easy, and find a pathway forward so we can deliver radical reductions in emissions, a great commercial impact too, and think about shared prosperity and how this works for the economy.
Great, thank you, Mike. So again, this article elaborates on the construction industry and how it needs to undergo significant transformation and not just incremental changes. Can you give us a little summary of what some of those transformations look like?
Sure. I mean, if we take a really transformational approach, which we are advocating, rather than incrementalism. When I say incrementalism, it's starting off with your kind of business as usual operation and footprint, and then looking for some incremental improvements in that. So transformation is what we're talking about, where we turn the challenge around, where rather than just measure the footprint of what we have today in terms of a project, we are thinking about, well, what would it actually take to deliver a net zero project? And there are a number of features I think that are important to bring out around that. First of all, I think there's a different role for the parties involved in the construction value chain. We introduced the idea of being resource custodians, where we think about how we kind of look after resources through the whole life cycle. Whose role is it to deal with product take back, repair, maintenance, refurbishment, and remanufacturing, where we think about managing for multiple useful lives through the asset life, where we can think about not just maintaining resources at their highest level of utilization, but also what are the value touch points going forward and how we can develop new business models so we can make this work commercially. So I think the role of resource custodian is one important feature. And then from that, it kind of drives us to reimagine the value chain, the whole value chain for circular economy and multiple useful lives. what the roles are for different players within that process, what are the skills, jobs and skills that are involved. As I mentioned a moment ago, it's also about redesigning business models and rethinking how we make money. So moving away from linear take, make, waste to how we can capture value through those multiple useful lives. And this, of course, requires a new way of working and takes collaboration to a whole new level. So we need to have an informed dialogue up and down the value chain, from the client end, through designers, through constructors, through specialists, material manufacturers and suppliers, and other experts. The whole value chain needs to be coordinated in a different way, whole new level of dialogue. And with this, as I say, it does change how we work together, roles and skills. So it really is a new way of working for the industry that we're talking about, and one that needs to happen. We have a burning platform already. The construction business model is breaking down when we take account of geopolitical events, where we look at resource scarcity, energy crisis, climate crisis, and how that's impacting on things as well. So there's a whole range of drivers that are changing the industry. There'll be winners and losers in this new era, and we want to work with the players that are innovating and developing a new way of working for the industry and long-term success.
You do highlight that the construction industry is notoriously change averse. How do you convince them to embark on a circular transformation? Is it just a case of show me the money?
Yeah, good question, Francis. And I think, of course, it's always about show me the money, right? We have to think about the money in the kind of short term, what that means, and the long term. And we've been 20 years in this space, and we've always been coupling strategies with the business case, always getting the financials right. So there is always that kind of element around it. But it's also back to that burning platform that I just mentioned. You know, the industry can't stay the same. Business models are riddled with risk, whether it's commercial risk, whether it's climate risk, whether it's costs and resources. There's a whole range of things that are driving change. So because of those changes, we have to make a change. And what we're talking about here is creating a new sweet spot, one that works for both climate action and, you know, for future business models and commercial success. You know, it's no longer a case of seeing sustainability over here and business success over there. Now, sustainability and business success are one of the same. This is a new era, so we have to work differently. So yes, it's a focus on show me the money, but it's also around understanding the dynamics of what makes business success in this kind of new era.
You certainly don't sugarcoat anything by suggesting that this is an easy transformation. You say that the industry needs to embrace complexity in order to complete the transformation. Do you have some examples of what that complexity looks like and how it can be tackled, or is even a case of tackling it? You know, just live with it?
Yeah, absolutely. It's going for net zero, going for circular economy. It's not easy. And anyone that says that there's 5 or 6 easy steps is perhaps being a bit misleading or disingenuous. Okay, and there's complexity at multiple levels. What we're ultimately talking about is a new way of working for the industry. And we're talking about redefining the market, redefining flows of resources and money in the marketplace. So this changes everything. Examples of embracing the complexity. I don't think many people have fully engaged with this or cracked it yet in construction. So we draw in some learning from other sectors. And it's interesting to look at automotive, for example. Renault Group have already designed and built a net zero vehicle, the Renault emblem. And they realized there's some very strong parallel learning here, Francis. They realized that they had to redefine everything. Redefine the product, the car, the vehicle, redefine design, redefine the value chain, the business models. So everything that we're talking about doing in construction, they've already been doing it in automotive. And it's quite impressive to see what they've been doing. In, I suppose, municipal works, we might look abroad to Copenhagen. Copenhagen City Council have got a new climate strategy. That involves change at multiple levels and engaging with consumers to think about circular living and lifestyles, to engage with the supply side, to redefine the proposition and business models, and to redefine the value chain. So there are examples that we can draw on in this space and adapt and modify for construction. But yeah, construction has a long way to go yet in cracking this challenge.
Great. And that is one of the things I do love about the article is that you do provide some great examples, like the Renault example, like Copenhagen, etc. And of course, you provide links to more details within the article as well, which is great for people to follow up on the reading of it. Do you have any more examples to give us today that would help us get an idea of what's going on out there?
Sure, and I think there's I think good examples at a number of levels. If we think about different regions, different parts of the world, at the moment, it's perhaps no surprise, the Netherlands is a leader in the circular economy, and their national economy is already around 25% circular. Meanwhile, in the UK, we're around about 7.5%. In Ireland, I think the circularity is at 2.7%. So we have, I think, in UK and Ireland, a long way to go to catch up on that. So the Netherlands are way ahead, and they're also able to achieve economic growth whilst going that way. And I think there's a really interesting model for economic growth that arises out of scaling up on the circular economy. And that's where we're no longer making money from just manufacturing and using things and throwing them away. By having those multiple useful lives and multiple value touch points, we can have economic growth without consumption or with lower consumption. So I think it's a case of rethinking the economy at that level. In industry, yeah, we've already talked about Renault and automotive. And I think it's also worth expanding on that example a little. It's impressive what they're doing, not just about one vehicle. They're actually doing this at scale. They're actually taking ownership and responsibility for all the key parts of the circular value chain, setting up their own businesses and buying other businesses that fit into an overall circular model. So it's impressive what they're doing at industry level. And then we think of other companies in other sectors. Company I'm quite impressed with is a Swedish company called Belaco. They manufacture and sell, or rather rent out furniture. So IKEA is the name that gets bandied around a lot. IKEA have done some good stuff in part, but they haven't really scaled it up. They haven't really changed the overall business model. Whereas Belaco, from scratch, designed a new business model all about circularity. So that involved for them pushing the design envelope of, say, a sofa to 50 years rather than the standard average of 9.8 years. So then what we're seeing is they're getting 4 useful life cycles out of the product rather than one disposal one. That enables us to then reduce spread resources and reduce emissions. So they only talk about 25% of the level of embodied emissions. And they've also worked the business model by spreading cost over multiple life cycles, having those value touch points. They've worked the business model so it's way cheaper for the customer to rent this rather than buy a new linear throwaway model. So there's real good innovation, I suppose, that integrates sustainability with technical and product innovation with commercial innovation. And it's those 3 strands that I think are very important for us to then learn from in the construction industry and to rethink the different systems and assets, and products, resources we have within projects, and then think about what are the appropriate life cycle management regimes where we can maximize the circular economy opportunity. For example, I think in mechanical electrical services, lends itself very nice there to fit outs and so on. And we maximize the opportunity and come up with new business models so we can then future-proof the way that construction companies earn their money, more money and less carbon.
The construction industry is led often by the customer, by the demand side. Do you think there needs to be a change in thinking on the demand side? You know, if people are keep looking for a certain product in terms of their buildings, etc., you know, obviously the construction industry is just going to go, yes, sir, no problems, or does there need to be a change in thinking from the demand side to look for those more sustainable practices?
Absolutely, Francis, that's fundamental. And that's the approach that we advocate, is taking the whole value chain to work on this and starting with the customer and what the ask is, what the demand is, and then rethinking that demand. Fundamentally, is a new building actually necessary, or could we repurpose an existing facility that's maybe already within the client estate or outside of the client estate? There's plenty of disused buildings around as well, or buildings that could be repurposed for other space. For example, do we need, in a post-COVID world where there's a lot more rebalancing on working from home and so on, do we need as much office space in the city centre? Can we repurpose office buildings for residential space? If there's a housing crisis, we need affordable housing. We need it to be low carbon housing. Can we repurpose existing commercial buildings for housing, for example? So going through that fundamental process of rethinking the dialogue on the demand, to then how do we design for this? So rethinking the designer as well. What are the parameters that the client's looking for around design, and questioning that, interrogating that in a kind of commercially sustainable way to come up with the optimal design for the future, and then taking that through from design through to contractors and capturing the innovation that can be brought to bear, whether it's the main contractor, specialists, suppliers. How can we collaborate to actually come up with a net zero delivery for that new ask as well? So yeah, absolutely. Rethinking the demand side and linking it with the supply side.
Great. And just finally, any final comments to wrap up the three-part series for our audience?
Yeah, sure. I think it's to be aware, to lift our heads up. There are some very important short-term challenges out there with geopolitical events, which are causing an energy crisis, price spikes on energy and resources, and of course, coupled with culture wars, it tends to distract our attention from really what's needed. So we need to kind of put our foot in the ball a little, look up, look ahead. Yes, sure, we need to look after the short term, but we need to build pathways that also are compatible with moving towards the longer term goals. The industry in construction and other sectors, whether we like it or not, are going to undergo massive levels of change. It's not possible to stay the same as we are. So to be aware that that change is coming. The winners will be those that are most agile to make the change happen, who are prepared to kind of innovate and reinvent themselves for this new era. Doing nothing is not really an option, and neither is caving in to the delusion of culture wars either, and taking our foot off the pedal. We have to innovate, and necessity is the mother of invention. With these dynamics in the marketplace, we have to reinvent and transform how we operate in the industry for commercial reasons, as well as climate and sustainability reasons. Anything less, any organization that tries to stay the same will be headed towards becoming a stranded asset. And our shareholders certainly won't thank us for that if we drift in that direction. So we're on a mission at Earthshine Group. We are working with partners in construction to develop and deliver net zero and circular projects using our transformational approaches. And basically, if anyone's out there, they're up for it, please reach out to us, get in touch. So that's what I'd like to leave with, Francis.
Great. Thank you so much, Mike, for sharing all of your valuable thought leadership. And I would encourage everyone to go read these 3 articles. They are up there now on techiesgogreen.com within the thought leadership area. So thank you so much again, and hope to speak to you soon.
Thank you, Francis. It's been a pleasure, and indeed we will speak again soon. Take care.